She wore the same uniform, took the same oath, and stood beneath the same flag as millions of other Americans during World War II. Yet from the very first day, she understood something many others did not. Her service would be questioned, minimized, and often ignored. This is the story of a Black woman who answered her country's call and discovered that patriotism did not guarantee equality. For her, the uniform represented more than fabric and insignia. It was discipline, structure, belonging. It was the promise that effort and sacrifice might finally outweigh prejudice. As she stood in formation for the first time, surrounded by others wearing the same colors, she believed, or at least hoped, that service would speak louder than skin. When the United States entered World War II, the nation mobilized at a scale never seen before. Factories ran day and night, ships crossed oceans, and young Americans from every corner of the country stepped forward to serve. Among them were thousands of Black women who joined organizations like the Women's Army Corps and the Army Nurse Corps, believing that duty, discipline, and sacrifice might finally open doors long closed to them. Recruitment posters spoke of unity. Newspapers printed images of smiling soldiers. Radio broadcasts described a nation standing together against tyranny. But beneath the surface, America remained deeply divided. Jim Crow laws still shaped daily life. Segregation was not an abstract idea. It was routine, enforced, and unquestioned in many places. For Black women, joining the military meant stepping into a system that needed them, but did not fully accept them. For many, enlistment was not only about defeating fascism overseas, it was about proving worth at home. Wearing the uniform meant hope that service would be recognized, that contribution would be remembered, and that the nation might finally live up to the ideals it so proudly defended abroad. Some hoped military service would offer skills and opportunities unavailable in civilian life. Others believed it might provide protection, stability, or a sense of purpose during uncertain times. Families debated the decision. Some encouraged it. Others feared it. But those who enlisted made a deliberate choice to serve despite knowing the risks, both visible and unspoken. But reality arrived quickly. Training facilities were segregated. Barracks were separated. Assignments were limited. While white women were often prepared for a range of roles, Black women were frequently funneled into support positions, regardless of skill or education. They followed the same rules, endured the same drills, and worked the same long hours, yet were reminded daily that they did not belong. Segregation was not always announced. Sometimes it was implied. A different sleeping area, a separate table, a closed door, an unspoken rule about where one could sit, eat, or speak freely. Authority flowed unevenly, and advancement came slowly, if at all. Excellence became a necessity, not a goal in hospitals. Black nurses treated wounded soldiers with care and professionalism, even when those soldiers refused to acknowledge them. They dressed wounds, administered medication, and comforted men who had seen unimaginable violence. Pain erased many differences, but prejudice often returned once the pain subsided. In administrative offices, Black women handled paperwork that kept the military functioning. Knowing their names would never appear in official reports, they tracked supplies, organized movements, processed orders, and ensured communication continued uninterrupted. Without their work, operations stalled. Yet recognition remained elusive. Some served overseas, far from home, in a war zone that demanded courage while still facing discrimination from within their own ranks. Even abroad, segregation followed them. Living quarters were divided, social spaces restricted, opportunity remained uneven. The enemy might have been thousands of miles away, but the familiar weight of exclusion traveled with them, and still, they served. They served through exhaustion, through disappointment, through silence. They followed orders and maintained discipline, understanding that any mistake might confirm unfair assumptions. They carried themselves with care, knowing they represented more than themselves. Letters sent home spoke carefully, often avoiding the truth. Complaints were discouraged. Silence became a survival skill. To speak out risked punishment, reassignment, or removal from service altogether. So many endured quietly, believing that history would one day tell their story, even if the present refused to listen. Some letters spoke of weather, routine, and vague reassurance. Between the lines, families sensed restraint. What could not be written was carried instead, in memory, posture, and restraint. Many learned to endure not because they lacked courage, but because endurance was the safest option. When the war ended, parades filled the streets. Uniforms were folded away. Medals were awarded, but for many Black women veterans, there was no celebration waiting at home. They returned to segregation, limited job opportunities, and a society eager to forget their contributions. Their service records gathered dust. Their stories faded into footnotes. If they were recorded at all, benefits promised were not always delivered equally. Skills gained were not always recognized. The uniform that once symbolized hope was packed away, replaced by familiar restrictions. The war had changed the world, but not enough yet. Without them, the war could not have been fought as it was. Armies do not move without logistics. Hospitals do not function without nurses. Command structures collapse without administrative support. Their labor, discipline, and resilience were not symbolic. They were essential. They were present at every level of the war effort, even when history refused to center them. Their absence from photographs does not reflect absence from impact. Their silence does not indicate insignificance. Today, their names are rarely spoken, their faces rarely shown, but their legacy remains, carried quietly through history by those who know where to look. Because wars are not only won on battlefields, they are carried by people often unseen, often unrecognized, but never insignificant. And this was one of them.